The stars shimmered with silent indifference as yet another world fell. Where once lush forests breathed beneath sweeping mountain ranges, only craters and chemical scorches remained. The skies above were streaked with debris-twisted girders, vaporized satellites, and fragments of the planetary defense grid, all drifting aimlessly in low orbit. It was the work of the Vokari, and it was efficient. The Vokari did not conquer out of necessity. They did it because they could. 700 years of unchecked expansion had turned their fleets into juggernauts and their soldiers into fanatics. No treaty held them. No alliance deterred them. Every race that once dared to resist had either been extinguished or subjugated. The Galactic Accord, once a proud assembly of sovereign species, now existed in name only, an empty council in a burned hall, with representatives who spoke in whispers and signed documents with trembling hands. The Vokari High Commander Sirax Vun stood aboard the dreadnought Unyielding Fang. Watching the burning surface of Korra from the observation deck, he did not smile. His species did not possess the muscles for smiling, but his narrow eyes shimmered with pleasure. Another planet broken, another people reminded of their place beneath the Vokari boot. His advisors buzzed quietly behind him, sharing updates, broadcasting threats to surrounding systems, and logging the operation's efficiency rating. Sirix did not care. No one could stop him. No one dared. The galaxy was theirs by right of might. That belief had never been tested. But then came the anomaly. A sensor alert pinged from the outer ring of Korra's orbit. A single ship emerging from a spatial rift without warning. It wasn't Vokari. It wasn't a core. It wasn't anything they recognized. The craft was enormous, matte black, almost ugly in its brutal symmetry. No transponder signal, no ails, no insignia. Just a silent arrival from the cold between stars. At first, they laughed. One ship against a fleet of 67 warships, dozens of orbital platforms, and planetary suppression grids. Even a dreadnought wouldn't last a minute under coordinated Vokari fire. But curiosity lingered like a disease among the higher command. What species dared to field a lone vessel in Vokari territory, and why now? Sirix gave the order. Scan it, board it if necessary. Show the fools what it meant to challenge them, and do it quickly. He had no intention of postponing the next assault on Edrian Prime. But as the scans returned, laughter turned to confusion, then unease. They couldn't penetrate its hull. They couldn't map its interior. No electromagnetic signatures leaked. No gravimetric distortions indicated life support systems. It was as if the ship wasn't there at all, Jesus' silhouette against the stars, absorbing every attempt at classification like a black hole. Then the Vokari ships began to vanish, not explode, not burn, vanish. Frigates winked out like candles. A destroyer blinked off every screen, then reappeared for a split second, bisected down the middle, drifting in two clean halves, before both halves vanished as well. The dreadnought shuddered as the Unyielding Fang's proximity alarms howled. The unknown vessel hadn't moved, and yet it was somehow ... closer. Sirax demanded answers. None came. His science officers screamed conflicting theories, each more desperate than the last. Cloaked weapons, dimensional displacement, a rift-based singularity. But there were no energy signatures, no visible weapons fire, and no tactical indicators. Just silent disappearance, coordinated and flawless. Panic gripped the command bridge. This was not war. This was extermination. This was surgical annihilation. The Vokari conquerors of 12 sectors, razors of 100 civilizations, had never seen anything like this. Finally, the unknown ship broadcast. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a voice, a human voice. This is the Nemesis. You are in violation of multiple interstellar laws and have committed genocide on sovereign accord worlds. Cease all operations and surrender your fleet. You have 10 seconds to comply. It was not a roar. It was not emotional. It was calm, cold, and mechanical. The kind of voice that did not bluff. The kind of voice that had spoken these words before. Cerex barked orders. All ships fire. Focus everything. Destroy that anomaly. But even as their weapons lit up the dark, even as plasma beams and torpedoes and quantum lances stitched through space, the Nemesis did not move. It did not fire. It simply ... watched. And then the Vokari weapons vanished too. Entire batteries were stripped clean off holes. Missiles detonated in their silos. Plasma conduits melted without discharge. Then the counterattack came not as a beam or missile, but as a wave. Gravity folded. Time slowed. Every ship felt it a ripple through existence, like the universe itself exhaling. Ships crumpled inward, not just erased from one moment to the next. On the unyielding Fang, Sirax watched in horror as the fleet he had built over decades ceased to exist, every second reducing his empire's greatest military assembly into ghostly memory. Then the Nemesis moved. It wasn't motion in the conventional sense. One moment, it was outside the system. The next, it was orbiting Korra. Cities that had been burning flickered as time unwound. Ashes rose into the sky. Buildings rebuilt themselves. The planet reversed its scars. Korra was returned, not rebuilt, but undone, as if the attack had never happened. Cerex tried to scream, to command, to flee, but he couldn't move. He couldn't even breathe. A voice filled his mind, not over comms, not through sound, but through thought. We are humanity. You erased our worlds once. You hunted us, but we are no longer bound by your understanding of war. We waited, we watched, and now we answer. Cerex collapsed. His body aged in seconds. His flesh withered. His mind unraveled into static. And as his dreadnought broke apart in perfect geometric slices, the Nemesis continued its orbit in silence. Below, the people of Korra stood in the streets. They looked to the sky. They saw the ship not beautiful, not majestic, but vast and absolute. A sentinel in orbit. A judge. The Accord awoke that day. Not all at once, not with cheers, but with shivers. With quiet questions passed from station to station. Who were the humans? Where had they gone? Why had they returned? Whispers became legends. Legends became hope, for the Vokari of the galaxy was no longer theirs. Something older had returned. Something silent. Something that had seen extinction and chosen patience over vengeance. But now vengeance had come, not in blood, not in chaos, but in cold precision. In a black warship that never needed to shout. They had terrorized the galaxy until a lone human warship entered orbit. The silence that followed the UNS Nemesis's arrival stretched across the galaxy like an old scar pulled open. Systems that had lived under the shadow of the Vokari Empire for generations now found themselves blinking in unfamiliar sunlight, unsure if they were witnessing liberation or a new form of subjugation. The great fleets of the Vokari had been reduced to memory in mere moments. Their dreadnoughts and command stations now the stuff of haunted whispers. No wreckage, only the unblinking presence of a warship that moved like a thought and judged like a god. But the humans said nothing more. They remained in orbit over Korra, silent and unmoving, their ship a void in the fabric of space. No diplomatic envoys landed. No soldiers descended. The people of Korra, unsure if they were free or merely paused, watched the sky with awe and terror. The Nemesis made no demands, no statements, no clarifications. It simply existed, defying the laws of war and nature alike. Across the galaxy, chaos bloomed. The Galactic Accord, long since broken and humiliated, scrambled to reform. Councils that had not convened in centuries re-established contact. The surviving empires and minor civilizations, once fractured by fear, now dared to send encrypted signals to each other, all carrying the same message. The humans had returned, but no one truly understood what that meant, because humans had not been seen in nearly 200 years. Official records claimed their last stronghold was annihilated by the Vokari during the siege of Nemea. Every last planet, every colony, every ship purged in fire. Some said they fled into uncharted space. Others whispered they had evolved beyond physical existence. A few claimed they had always been ghosts, myths invented to give the Accord false courage during its final days. And yet, the Nemesis was real, more real than any story. It hadn't just destroyed the Vokari fleet. It had undone their actions, reversed time, restructured matter, silenced an empire without firing a single conventional weapon. The implications were staggering. What kind of technology allowed a single ship to rewrite causality, to manipulate history? And more terrifyingly, what kind of people would create such a weapon, then wait centuries before using it? In a shattered communications relay orbiting the barren world of Draven 3, a coded message was received. It was ancient, traced to a protocol long thought extinct. On Scum Node Alpha Emergency Reconnect Sequence, a decaying AI core, preserved in cold silence, flickered to life. It re-established links. Dozens of dormant human outposts hidden across the galaxy powered on. Some in asteroid belts, some buried deep beneath dead moons. They had waited, they had endured, and now something had called them back. The Accord Council, newly restored, and desperate for relevance, attempted contact. A delegation of 6 species, including the insectoid Drell, the crystalline, and the long-subjugated humanoid Sarans, sent a diplomatic fleet toward Korra. Their message was simple. We welcome you. We are ready to listen. Please tell us your intentions. The fleet never reached Korra, just beyond the 5th orbital ring. Time fracture. Not violently, not catastrophically, imperfectly. The ships halted. Systems froze mid-process. The crews reported nothing unusual because to them, no time passed at all. A blink. Then they were back in their home system, days away, fuel expended, unable to explain how. The message was clear, even without words. You may not approach, at least not yet. Not until the humans decided they were ready to be seen. But while the Accord tread carefully, others did not. The Vokari High Council, shattered and panicked, had not been entirely destroyed. Serax Vaughn had been one warlord among many, albeit the most powerful. Deep within the fortified system of Veltarak, the remaining commanders convened in secret. Their fleet had been halved, their communications sabotaged, their military doctrine shattered. Still, they clung to their pride. The Vokari were not used to defeat. They did not understand humility. And most dangerously, they misunderstood what had happened. Commander Krelth, youngest of the surviving elite, spoke with venom in his throat. It was a trick, a deception. No ship can do what we saw. It must be projection, illusion. The humans were known for espionage, not power. We gave them too much credit. We cower from shadows. Others disagreed. Admiral Zorik, old and scarred, slammed a fist on the obsidian table. You saw what I saw. That ship bet physics. It erased us like static. There is no deception that can do that. We faced a weapon beyond our understanding. But Krelth was not alone in his belief. A faction formed radical, prideful, willing to believe anything except the truth of their defeats. They began plans in secret. Not if a counterattack none dared that butt of infiltration. They would send cloaked scouts to Korra, collect data, learn, and if possible, bring back a fragment, a weapon, a piece of whatever godlike engine the humans had conjured. On Korra, time passed slowly. The people rebuilt, confused and frightened. Their dead had returned. Families reunited with members they had watched burn. Whole cities reappeared, structurally untouched, yet haunted by memories of being gone. Psychologists struggled to make sense of the event. Scientists tried and failed to analyze the changes in planetary residue. Time, it seemed, had been rewritten, but only locally. The wider galaxy still remembered the attack. Only Korra had been restored. Above them, the Nemesis flew silent until one day it spoke again, but not to the Accord, not to the Vokari. It spoke to a child. 6-year-old Tali Marin wandered from her village one morning, chasing light bugs through a fog-covered orchard. She had seen the ship many times, knew it as the Sky Giant. Her mother feared, and her brother admired. But that day, she felt something different. A pull, a song, almost. In her head, in her chest, she found a device beneath a twisted oak tree, a small orb, silver and humming. It unfolded at her touch. Light poured into her eyes. Images, words, sounds, a voice not frightening, not cold like before, warm, familiar. It asked her questions, simple ones. Are you afraid? Are you hurt? What do you remember? When she answered, the orb pulsed. A week later, the humans responded not through ships, not through threats, but through dreams. Across a dozen worlds, children reported visions of a great black ship and a voice in their heads. Not words they understood, but feelings, reassurance, curiosity, sorrow. The patterns became undeniable. The humans were reaching out not to governments, not to armies, but to the innocent, the ones untouched by history, the ones still unafraid. It wasn't a show of power. It was a test. And on the hidden moon of Eos 9, a place no map acknowledged, a figure opened its eyes for the first time in centuries. Clad in armor grown from memory and alloy with time itself, it stepped into a chamber of light. Around it, other figures stood, once human. Now, something more. Not synthetic, not entirely organic. Rebuilt by war and waiting. Each one a relic of a species the galaxy had forgotten. The Nemesis has reawakened, the figure said. We are called, answered another. How many remain? Enough. The humans had not vanished. They had hidden. They had prepared. And now, as the Vokari began their desperate infiltration mission, cloaked in quantum mist, they passed through the edge of Korra's system, their senses blinded by static. But the Nemesis was not blind. It did not need senses. It remembered, it felt. And as the first Vokari scout tried to land on a remote continent, it stopped moving. Not through destruction, but through time. Frozen, preserved, isolated in a singular moment stretched across eternity. When the Vokari command tried to recall the scout, all they received was a burst transmission of a single word, repeated in every known language. Observed, fear returned to them like old fire. And in a chamber buried within a Nemesis, a mind once human, now something far more began compiling. Galactic coordinates, ship registries, war crimes. It was not revenge. It was justice. And justice had waited long enough. They had terrorized the galaxy until a lone human warship entered orbit. And now the galaxy would learn what humanity had become in the silence. The stars above Korra no longer blinked, as if even the cosmos held its breath in the presence of the UN's Nemesis, which remained silent and unmoving in orbit while fear and awe rippled across the galaxy. The Vokari Empire, once supreme, had been brought to its knees not by war, but by the arrival of a single human warship that defied comprehension. And now, civilizations across the stars whispered theories of what the humans had become. Machines, or something far worse, hidden within ruins once occupied by the Scavengers uncovered strange artifact symbols etched in forgotten human code, warning of something older and more terrifying than war. The Harbinger, a sentient anomaly born from humanity's attempt to manipulate time. The Vokari, ignorant of the deeper cosmic threat, desperately unleashed an ancient super weapon, the Scourge, engine on Nemesis, only to see it vanish mid-flight as a child's voice echoed gently. You shouldn't have done that. In response, Nemesis did not retaliate with violence, but instead froze the entire Vokari species in Timalev, but locked in stillness, suspended from history itself before turning its attention toward a darker enemy. In secret stations like Eos Nin, post-human entities known as Time-Binders awaken, preparing to fight a war not across space, but across timelines themselves, because the Harbinger had returned, infecting systems with temporal decay and rewriting the laws of reality. Humanity had not vanished, they had stepped beyond perception, becoming shepherds of time, erasing themselves from history to protect the galaxy from a future worse than extinction. Now, the Nemesis began to move again, not through space, but through wind, folding backward to prevent an event that had not yet occurred. And as the stars trembled and empires watched helplessly, a silent message spread across the forgotten ruins of human outposts. When time cracks, we return. We are the silence between war. We are human.